All right, let's dive into a chemical reaction that honestly looks like straight up magic. Seriously, we're going to take two liquids that are completely clear, mix them, and boom, an instant solid white cloud appears out of nowhere. It's an amazing visual, but it's also a perfect way to understand a super fundamental rule of nature. Why some things dissolve and some things, well, just don't. And trust me, the science behind the trick is even cooler than the trick itself.
So, here's the big question we're tackling today. How is this even possible? How can you combine two totally see-through solutions and get this opaque, solid thing just like that? That's the mystery we're going to solve together, step by step. Okay, let's get into it. First things first, we need to set the stage for our little experiment. The setup couldn't be simpler. We're just talking a couple of test tubes here, but the result is anything but ordinary. So let's meet our two main performers. In one test tube, we've got a solution of sodium sulfate, and in the other, barium chloride. Now, the crazy thing is, both of these just look like plain old water. They're completely clear, totally colorless, nothing exciting to see here. Or so you'd think. Now, the procedure is about as easy as it gets. We'll take about 3 milliliters of the sodium sulfate solution. Then we do the exact same thing with the barium chloride solution. The stage is set. And for the final act, we just pour one into the other. Simple, right? But what happens in that one little moment of mixing? That's where it all happens. So now it's time for the big reveal. Let's see what happens the very instant these two clear, kind of boring liquids actually meet. This is the good part. Okay, so picture it. You've got the clearest sodium sulfate solution just waiting. We take the barium chloride and we start to pour. You can see the two liquids just about to come together, and in that split second that they mix, bam, a thick, white, cloudy substance just appears right before your eyes. It's not slow, it's immediate, like a sudden storm inside a tiny test tube. This solid stuff that seems to come from absolutely nowhere is what this whole thing is about. And this brilliant white solid, it's got a proper scientific name. It's called a precipitate. A precipitate is really just an insoluble solid that pops out of a liquid solution during a chemical reaction. And the key word there is insoluble. It means it doesn't dissolve, which is exactly why we can see it so clearly. So, we've seen the what. Now it's time for the how and the why. Let's pull back the curtain and unpack the secret behind this chemical magic trick. It all comes down to something I like to call the partner swap. Now, the official fancy name for what's going on is a double displacement reaction, but a much better way to think about it is like partners swapping at a dance. Before the reaction, you've got sodium paired up with sulfate, and barium is paired up with chloride. When you mix them all together on the dance floor, they all decide to switch partners. This slide shows the swap perfectly. On the left, you see our original couples, sodium with sulfate and barium with chloride. Then on the right, you see what happens after the dance. Barium has now paired up with sulfate, and sodium has found a new partner in chloride. It's a complete rearrangement. Now, this is the really crucial part, understanding these two new couples. The first one, barium sulfate, is the star of our show. This new combination is totally insoluble in water. That's our white solid, our precipitate. The other new couple, sodium chloride, well, that's just plain old table salt. And as you know, salt dissolves super easily in water, so it just stays invisible, floating around in the solution. So one new pairing makes the cloud, and the other one hides in plain sight. And here is that whole story written out in the language of chemistry. We start with our two aqueous solutions. That just means they're dissolved in water. When they react, they form barium sulfate. You can see it's marked with an S for solid. And see that little down arrow? That's a special symbol chemists use to show a precipitate has formed. The other product, our good friend table salt, just stays aqueous. Okay, let's wrap this all up and connect the dots. How do we get from what looks like a magic trick to a reliable, scientific method? What are the really important things we've learned from this cool reaction? So let's do a quick recap. We saw a white solid form instantly. We now know that cloudy stuff is barium sulfate, and it appears because it's insoluble in water. At the exact same time, the other new product, table salt, stays completely dissolved and invisible. And we've even learned the lingo for it. It's a double displacement reaction, and more specifically, because a solid formed, we also call it a precipitation reaction. It all fits together. So, what's the big takeaway here? That incredible thing we saw, that sudden cloud, it's not random magic, not at all. It's a highly predictable chemical event. It's all governed by the basic rules of solubility, which chemicals will dissolve in water and which ones won't.
Science turns the magician's trick into a repeatable experiment.
And that leaves us with one final thought. If a reaction this dramatic and this visual follows such clear, predictable rules, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other magic that we see in the world is just science that we haven't taken the time to explore yet?